I'm Jim Knight, co-founder of the Instructional Coaching Group, and you're listening to Coaching Conversations, where I talk with coaching experts from around the world so that all of us can learn better ways to make an unmistakably positive impact on the people around us. Marsha, I'm so excited to meet with you, Dr. Marsha Tate. I mean, you're a rock star when it comes to engaging students, understanding how the brain affects how kids learn. A couple of your books are just classics in education. They must have sold, I bet you, 1 million copies, like thousands, hundreds of thousands of copies. Sit and Get Won't Grow Dendrites is one of them. Engaging the Brain. Both of those are classics. I remember, I think it was last year, we were learning forward, and I was talking to somebody, and I was supposed to be signing books for Corwin, and one of my colleagues came and said, "Jim, you got to get out there. There's a line about a mile long of people waiting to sign your books." And I got there. They were actually lined up to have you sign the book because there were so many people coming from your session. But a couple of people showed up for me, about 100 showed up for you. And you, Marcia, you are arguably the best presenter I've ever seen. You're absolutely flawless, spectacular, hilarious, engaging, useful, moving. So you're a friend of ICG. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, Jim, thank you so much. And coming from a person I admire and respect as much as I do you, that is a true compliment. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Anybody who's seen you would say the same thing. Your sessions are spectacular, and it's been great having you every time you've been at TLC. Now, today we're talking about this book, Healthy Teachers, Happy Classrooms, not your other two more famous books, although this is probably getting famous too. But
It is.
you said this is your favorite book. Why is this your favorite book?
I think Engaging the Brain was always my favorite before I wrote this one.
Right.
And then when I wrote this one, I felt it met a need because I wrote it during the pandemic. And even before the pandemic, I was seeing teachers who were losing their passion for teaching. And I thought we've got to do something that will help restore the passion and the optimism, because teaching is such a wonderful profession. And I come from a family of educators. My daughter's a principal, my son-in-law is a principal, my sister was a French teacher. So I come from a family of educators, and I just saw so many people leaving the profession. And then after the pandemic, that increased even more. So I thought, this is a timely time. This is a good time to write the book. So I did. And I'm glad I did, because teachers are telling me that their lives are being enhanced through the book. So that's a good thing.
Well, I remember you getting a standing ovation at TLC when you talked about the ideas in the book. I know you've organized this book into 4 different sections: soothing environment, healthy physiology, positive emotions, meaningful existence. So I thought maybe we could go through those 4 sections and you tell me a little bit about them. And you and I have gone back and forth. There are 12 principles here. We probably can't do all 12, but we picked 6 of the 12 to talk about. And so that first area of soothing environment, what's one of those principles that you have in that section?
One of those principles is you have to surround yourself with a calming environment. And in that section, we talk about 4 elements of that environment, which would be your color, music, lighting, and aromas. And so we talk about having a classroom that has those, but also having a home where you are surrounded by a soothing environment. And so in terms of the calmingness of color, we talk about the colors that are calming. I wore a calming color today, blue, like the blue of the sky, the blue of the ocean. The colors of nature are the most calming colors for you. And so you need to surround yourself. When I teach the workshop, I have people laughing. I said, you can paint that nursery red if you want to. Don't be surprised if that 3-month-old is up in the middle of the night crying because of the wall color. But actually, the color, the aroma, and I tell teachers you have to watch the aromatherapy in school because you don't want to do anything to aggravate an allergy. But at home, if you don't have any allergies, then you can use the lavender and the vanilla. And I even showed them in the workshop some things I use for aromatherapy. And then also the music is one of the ones that we picked that we wanted to talk about. And when I teach about music, I teach about the 3 things that music does for the brain. One of the things I can do is I can change the state of your brain with the type of music I choose to play. I can make you happy or sad or calm or agitated with my music. And I tell teachers the types of music they want to have in a happy classroom, which would be calming, some classical, some smooth jazz, some new age music, some Native American music, nature sounds. All of those tend to be calming for the brain. And then I tell them that sometimes you don't want your students calm, you want them motivated and energetic. And so then you want to use some rhythm and blues or rock and roll or fast-paced country. I have a funny for you, Jim. Do you know what you get if you play a country song backwards?
Tell me.
You get your wife back, you get your house back, your alimony payments stop, and you get out of jail. I do a lot of work in Texas. They told me that in Dallas. So
Well, that's a good one. That's pretty much it. Yeah, your dog probably comes back to life too.
your dog comes back to life. Absolutely. The second thing I teach about music is that in many brains, there's a math music connection. I happen to have a daughter that has a math music connection. She had 12 years of piano lessons and did very well in math in school. And then the main thing I teach for music is that music helps you remember. And so anything that you can put to music for your students so they can put to music for themselves, they tend to remember. So those are basically the things I teach about that. Yeah.
So many interesting things. Well, I'm a huge music fan. I love all kinds of music. I'll just say two things. I can't resist because it's one of my favorite topics. So one of them is in terms of memory. I remember vividly the first day I heard the Beatles song "Hey Jude," where I was, what was happening, and I can remember all of who I was with, and all the things associated with this because it sort of sticks with that, or the memory sticks with it, or whatever. So it is absolutely true. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you know about this, but there's a record called "Sleep" by this guy Max Richter, and what it is it's 9 hours or 10 hours long, and the idea is you're supposed to play it when you sleep. So when you wake up, you can hear the music, and when you're half awake, half asleep, and you hear that Paul McCartney song "Mulla Kantar." I heard that on the radio when I was half awake, half asleep. It's always stayed with me. But that's become one of my favorite bits of music to do when I'm writing and I want something in the background, not Mulla Kantar, but this sleep thing, because it's kind of repetitive and so forth. And they put a concert on it at the Sydney Opera House where he did sleep. And people paid big bucks to go in and sleep through the concert. Like he played all night. It's an amazing thing. But it is true. It is definitely calming. And picking the right music, that's such a great insight.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I'm not familiar with that, but I certainly will look for it.
It's the most popular, most downloaded classical music ever. But but I think people download it so they can sleep at night. I think that's why it's downloaded. They play it so much because it helps them sleep. What about healthy physiology? What do you have to say about that?
Healthy physiology includes two of the things we wanted to talk about, and that would be movement and sleep. And I just picked out some of the pieces of research that are in the book that I thought were extremely helpful in terms of movement. I always knew I think walking was great for us, but multiple studies have found that walking can reduce the risk of cardiovascular events by 31% in men and 32% in women. And this is according to the Harvard Health Watch. So the book is really well researched, and I have very reputable resources in the book. So, and they're finding now that most people who live to their 90s will have an active lifestyle. And so that's really important. And so that's what I'm working on, because I don't think I do enough activity in terms of my life.
It's hard when you travel.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. But you know what I started doing? In the Atlanta airport where I live, once you clear security, you can actually opt to take the train or you can walk to your gate. And I now walk to my gate. And if you're at F, you've got a long walk ahead of you.
I have done that. Minnesota, same deal. If you have to walk through the whole thing, it's quite a trip. I think there's something, you can't do this in the Atlanta airport, but there's something to be said about, I just was reading about this the other day, about being out in the sun too. So if you can do it outside, I think that's a really helpful thing.
I think that ties in with the calming environment too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What else about healthy physiology do you want to mention?
Sleep, definite sleep. I hear people bragging about not needing a lot of sleep. And they're finding that sleep actually does three things for you. First of all, when you're sleeping, your body is healing or repairing itself. And that's why they put people that have traumatic injuries and comas and let them sleep for weeks at a time so the body can heal itself. And then the second thing about sleep is much of what that you're learning during the day is processed at night when the brain is less active. And so what I tell teachers is that as you talk to parents, make sure that they're making sure that their children are getting enough sleep, because much of what they learn in school is processed when their brain is less active. And then the third thing is the positive correlation between adequate sleep and weight loss. When you're sleeping appropriately, your hormones stand a better chance of being balanced and you tend to lose weight easier. So sleep is important. It's very important.
I have this thing, this ring. It's called an Aura ring. Have you heard about these things?
I have heard of them. Yes.
So it tells me how I'm doing in terms of my sleep, and it'll tell me when I mean, you can do it with your watch and other things too, but it gives me all kinds of detail. And it gives me a thing on readiness, which has a lot to do with sleep. So it'll say, today, take it easy because you're not really ready to go, but it keeps track of it. I have found, see, I think you're probably flawless with every presentation, but I have found if I don't get enough sleep, it's really hard for me to be as on with my presentation. Plus, my brain doesn't move as much as fast. It takes a little longer to jump those synaptic gaps or whatever's happening inside my brain, but sleep,
Absolutely.
I'm a little sharper when I present.
I feel the same way. Sometimes when you get in late and you don't have the adequate sleep, then you can tell in your presentation that you're not as sharp. Hopefully your audience can't, but you can't. You
Yeah.
can really tell. Yeah.
And it's more tiring.
It
So,
is.
look,
It
I think
is.
when you get enough sleep, this has been kind of my obsession recently, but when you get enough sleep, you actually get more done than if you got up early and started working. Or maybe you go to bed early, but whatever. But if you get, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours of sleep, you're actually probably gonna get more done than if you only get 5 hours of sleep.
In fact, 7 to 9 is what you're shooting for. 7 to 9 hours of sleep for the adult brain per night.
Yeah. I just have to convince my brain it should be asleep all night. That's the problem. It's like older, harder to stay asleep.
It's
Well,
harder as you get older. It really is to stay asleep.
how about positive emotions?
That's probably my favorite one of the four, because this is where you get into optimism and laughter and games. And so let's talk about laughter. I pulled in some research from the book for Cancer Treatment Centers of America, which is now called the City of Hope. They do a lot with laughter therapy there because they find that people who are taking radiation or chemotherapy, if they can involve them in laughter therapy, it actually improves their mood and self-esteem. And so they're finding a lot with that. Laughter is powerful. It really is powerful. And one of the things I mentioned is that there are exceptions, but a lot of your major comedians live longer than the general population. And you can look back on all the ones. I give them a long list. The latest ones, we were hoping that Betty White would make it to 100. She almost did. She was about 18 days shy. And we lost a comedian not long ago, a few months ago, Bob Newhart. I don't know if you ever looked at the Bob Newhart show, but
Yep.
he was 94. And then I recall the cast of the Andy Griffith Show. Everybody on there lived to be over the age of 80. Somebody reminded me that none of them married, and the only one who did marry was Otis, and he was the town drunk. So, take that what it's worth. But laughter, actually, you're finding that we find that high stress is the number one cause of aging. And I have to tell you, Jim, this is a very monumental year for me because this is my 50th year in education.
Oh, wow.
I started education 50 years ago. Yeah.
Well, what a blessing you've been for educators. That's such a the cool thing about laughter too is that assuming it's not laughter pointed at another group, it's a unifying thing. So you could
It
have
is. It is.
people with a lot of different perspectives, but if they're together watching something funny, they come together just the same way it can happen with stories, brings people together. But laughter is it's a really, I mean, I'm not that funny, but I like to have funny video clips. And so I rely on my technology to pull me through, but giving people a chance to laugh is it's really, really spectacular in terms of positive emotions.
Did you know that the brain doesn't know the difference between real laughter and fake laughter? So if you're not tickled, you can actually fake it. Yoga calls it forced laughter.
So if I just pretend to laugh, it's going to work.
It will help. It will definitely help.
I'm going to try that out. I'm not optimistic, but you're saying it's true, so I'm going to give it a try. So how about meaningful existence? I mean, when you think about these things, soothing environment, people might poo-poo that, but what a difference it can make if your environment is calming and you have music and colors and maybe whatever living things I would imagine and those kind of things. And then healthy physiology, positive emotions. So tell me about meaningful existence.
Wow. I say that for last whenever I present this workshop because it is so powerful. When you let's talk about close personal relationships, and then I'll end with purpose. Until I got into the book, I didn't realize that. Do you know that if you don't have a close personal relationship with anybody, the research shows that you stand a 50% chance of dying early, and it doesn't matter what you die from? That's how much people need people. And so we talk about close personal relationships as being key. to having a happy life. And I even put in the book, a dog or a pet, can even be that close personal relationship. But
Huh.
you need that. That is so, so key and so important.
The idea of close personal relationships. There, I don't know if you've read Vivek Murthy's book Together, but it's, he was a Surgeon General. He did this thing where he went around the country and he looked at all kinds of health issues in the country when he was working for President Obama as a Surgeon General. He was President Biden's Surgeon General too. But he looked at all the health issues that the country was facing, and he said the one that's most important is loneliness. And his book Better Together is, I think it's called Better Together, or maybe it's just Together, is all about that. So, and this might be an unfair question, but he said that he cited one study that said 43% of people 45 and older identify themselves as chronically alone. So, what do you think? If I'm in that 43% group where I feel alone, what can I do to develop those relationships?
Ooh, I didn't realize the percentage would be that high.
Well, there's different studies. This was one. It was actually done by the AARP, who keeps sending me emails all the time for some reason. But anyway, they use a tool from UCLA. But I mean, it's around the world, different things. So in Canada, I think it's 25% of women that they studied identified themselves as alone. There's a Department of Loneliness in England. There's a study in Italy, a study in Japan. They're all mentioned in Vivek Murthy's book. All these different places seeing loneliness as an issue. And the numbers are more than 20% in every case. But that particular study done for the AARP identified 43%. So,
Wow. Well, I really feel like those close personal relationships can be established a number of different ways. One is, of course, through family members and
right.
your support system. And my support system comes from my family, but mainly from my 9 grandchildren, who are the absolute loves of my life and who make me smile just to even look at them. Another way is through friends, of course, that you've made, and hopefully you would have some close friends. I would think support groups, if you need a group of people who are
Mhm.
going through what you might be going through and you need the support from another group, that would be another method for establishing those close personal relationships. But it's definitely needed.
Even a pet, you said, could make a difference.
Even a pet.
A place of worship could be a place where you could find other people. Look, like,
Absolutely.
be proactive, I guess, in trying to find that connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't have those connections, I think you've got to look for them because they're so
Right.
important.
Okay, purpose.
Purpose. We save kind of the best to last. It's really clear that people who get up every morning with something to do or something to look forward to tend to live longer. They looked at people who lived over 100, and one of the things they tended to have in common was a purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. And oftentimes, when people lose their purpose, they may not even live very long after that. It can happen with couples who've been married for a long time, and one will pass away, and then the other one will pass away shortly thereafter. Or you can see it with a situation where a person retires from a job and doesn't bother to get involved in anything else. And then they just kind of waste away. And before you know it, they're losing their purpose.
Mm.
So you have to, and I tell in my workshops, if you lose one purpose, then you need to find another one. You need to find another reason to get up in the morning or something else that you can look forward to. It makes such a difference.
Well, it's challenging, but certainly if you've made the decision to be an educator, one purpose is definitely making a difference in lives of kids. That's a pretty good reason to get up in the morning.
That's a great reason to get up in the morning. And
Yeah.
it's been my reason for a long time, make a difference in the lives of kids. And when I was with the DeKalb school system for 30 years, I was doing it for the teachers and the students in that district. But now I feel like that's exponential because now every teacher who attends my workshop can go back and share the information with the students and other teachers they work with.
So when you were, just kind of to bring this to a close, when you were writing this book, is there anything that kind of surprised you or that changed about you or that you learned in the writing of the book as you were doing this research?
Yes, there was one thing that just hit me one day. When you look at the things that little children love, like games and laughter and music and movement, okay? The things that little children love are the same things that keep older people
Hmm.
living. And that hit me one day, and I thought, oh my God, if we need them at the beginning of our life and we need them at the end of our life, why don't we need them throughout our life? And that was the aha moment for me when I was writing the book.
Wow, that's very cool. Well, Dr. Tate, thank you for 50 years of dedication to education, for being a stellar presenter, a person that has had, you have touched the lives of millions of people. And I'm really grateful for all you've done, what you published, and your care and concern for educators through this book. I'm always, okay, positive relationships. What are my terms? Positive emotions, meaningful experience, soothing environment. I always feel those things when I talk to you. I feel every conversation we've had has been a life-giving conversation, and I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. I feel the same about you, and I cherish the friendship that we developed over the years. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Marcia.